The H1B Guy here, and today, the H1B Guy news for the week ending August 28th, 2020. I'd like to ask you, if you haven't already, to go ahead and subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube. It helps me to continue to produce more content like this for you. And speaking of more content, stay tuned until the very end of this video to find out what we have planned for next week. A lot of exciting things in store. And now, the news. August 18th of 2020, and an article written by Clive Thompson for Wired titled, "Tech Workers Are Living the American Dream in Canada." Quote, Nitin Alabur left the U.S. after working under H1B visa for Canada in 2018. And he, quote, warns young Indian engineers and students, "There's no point moving to the U.S. Head north instead." The article then goes on to say, but there's a real new global winner, and that Canada, and particularly Toronto, since 2013, the tech scene has grown faster than in any other North American city. In 2017, Toronto had added more tech jobs than Seattle, the San Francisco Bay Area, and Washington, D.C. combined. In 2018, the most recent year for which numbers are available, the city was second only to the Bay Area in new tech jobs. Toronto is so crammed with immigrants that nearly 50% of all residents were born outside the country. And here we have the U.S. actively chasing away immigrants. But Canada's immigration policy is hardly warm and fuzzy. On the contrary, it's icily calculating. And then the article finishes out by saying that the U.S. is losing this competition, not because of bad policy. It now seems to be a dangerously racist place. You know, as we've been discussing here on this channel for some time, outsourcing specifically to Canada has been one of the solutions that tech startups, as well as other large organizations, will continue to leverage. Estimated savings by outsourcing to Canada are anywhere between 30 to 40%, and there's no lack of quality, as we've previously covered. If Canada continues to attract the world's best and brightest and provide solutions at a fraction of the cost, they will continue to gain a significant competitive advantage. Of course, everything really isn't unicorns and rainbows in Canada either. It has its own set of social issues that present unique challenges. But with that being said, the merit-based system for Canada is working. Just look at the tech jobs growth in Canada as evidence. Look at the Express Entry program and its success. The U.S. needs to continue to research and consider a merit-based immigration system. Reform is necessary. But the last point that was made in the article is the one that really just makes me sick. Not only is the U.S. losing due to bad policies, now the U.S. is losing because of social injustice. It's just not right. October 24th, 2020. An article written by Stuart Anderson for Forbes titled, quote, "Indian H1B visa holders again show they are not cheap labor." And the article begins with stating a few things and then gets into this, quote, "Statistics show a sharp increase in Indian nationals who've received immigrant investor visas. The number of Indians granted an immigrant investor visa rose from 174, that's principals and dependents, in fiscal year 2017, to 585 in fiscal year 2018, to 760 in fiscal year 2019. That represents an increase of more than 300% between fiscal years 2017 and fiscal years 2019. The article continues to go on to show that research shows the legal requirement on salaries and the functioning of the U.S. labor market has resulted in H-1B visa holders overall being paid comparable to or higher than U.S. professionals with similar experience. You know, I am going to make some very assumptive statements based on my experience here. But I will say that most of the H-1B visa holders that I've had the opportunity to befriend over the years are very financially conservative and have most of their time spent here in the U.S. has been building wealth. That may come as a surprise to those in the H-1B cheap labor camp, but the proof is in the numbers. 760 Indian immigrants received EB-5 final action for fiscal year 2019. EB-5 category is considered the millionaire visa, as you must provide evidence of the standard minimum investment of $1.8 million. I understand that some may have obtained this from family inheritance, but I'd also say most of it, the capital really, was earned based on the back of high-skilled technical labor. So think about that, the American dream. Come here, work hard, build financial wealth. We've joked about how Senator Rick Scott's blocking of S-386 was due to the Rosetta Stone Amendment, and that thousands of H-1B holders are now learning Spanish. But all jokes aside, the reality is EB-5 is another path to permanent residency, albeit from an investor perspective. August 24th, 2020. An article written by Ananya Bhattacharya for Quartz India titled, Facebook and Google offered almost $2 million to some H-1B software engineers this year. Quote, Facebook and Google dominated the top paid jobs among H-1B applicants and software engineering roles in the first 8 months of the year, according to h1data.info. The average salary for 190,000 software engineers applying for H-1B visa was just over $100,000, while the title software developer had over 122,000 filings with an average salary of $85,569. So again, here's more evidence that disputes the H-1B cheap labor debate. While that cheap labor debate may have rung true 10 to 15 years ago, the scrutiny that surrounds the LCA certification and the prevailing wage determinations since President Trump's tenure in office has led to increased earnings for H-1Bs over the last 10 years. The article starts out with highlighting a petition requested by Facebook for a software engineer with a projected annual salary of $2 million. But that case was denied. And then it also highlights another one that was an annual salary of $1.9 million, but that petition was approved. Can you fathom what caused the denial for someone that was going to earn a $2 million annual salary as a software engineer? I also found it intriguing to see the national average salary for H-1B visas filed under the software engineer category was just over $100K. And then add that to the fact that the national average for H-1B visas filed under the software developer category was just over $85,000. So what merits a $15,000 difference on the annual salary between a software engineer and a software developer? Well, there's several reasons, but really it comes down to the job and degree requirements for the job opening. It also comes down to the internal title that the company gives the employee. These are really the largest differences in the designation, and think about that. Just based on job requirements, minimum requirements really, and internal title, there's a $15,000 difference. And then the last article for the week, on August 27th of 2020, written by Gad Lebanon for Forbes, titled, Reports of U.S. Decline Are Greatly Exaggerated. Quote, the tech sector share of the U.S. economy is much larger than in most countries, and the pandemic-driven recession has greatly accelerated the shift to online activity and digital transformation by businesses and consumers, which would have otherwise taken years. That led to a faster growth in global demand for technology. In addition, the U.S. is especially dominant in tech industries that are likely to grow the fastest in the coming years. Reasons for why the U.S. is so successful in technology compared to other countries. And he lists off 7 reasons, and they are: 1, the best universities, which attract many of the best students from all over the world, most of whom tend to stay in the U.S. after completing their studies. 2, a large inflow of experienced talent from other countries. 3, unrivaled access to venture capital. 4, fluency in English, the global language of both business dealing and content. 5, an economy big enough to make achieving scale relatively easy. 6, Silicon Valley, the home and heart of the tech revolution. And then the last one, number 7, a culture that welcomes innovation and disruption and strongly encourages entrepreneurial behavior. This is the first time that we've covered one of Gad's articles, and he's a contributing writer for Forbes who covers the U.S. labor market. He also possesses a PhD in economics from Princeton. I'd be willing to bet Gad is actually a pretty intelligent guy, but I guess that isn't too much of a stretch considering his pedigree. It's also interesting enough to see, he previously worked for the Israeli Central Bank. So what's the context behind sharing this article published yesterday? Well, it's that Gad is not an immigration reporter. Yet, here he is hitting on a lot of the points that we continue to make here on this channel. The technology sector in the U.S. is a driving factor and key indicator to our overall economic growth. Driven by the growth of remote workers, a rapid shift to daily routine online activity, and businesses implementing digital transformation initiatives, the U.S. technology sector continues to remain stable. The challenge becomes, can the U.S. continue to attract the world's best and brightest? Gad outlines his take on why the U.S. should continue to be a global leader in the technology sector, and it includes the U.S. being an attractive destination for high-skilled immigrants. And the last point, a culture that welcomes innovation and disruption and strongly encourages entrepreneurial behavior. I really hope that this channel is doing its own little part in trying to make sure the U.S. is not discriminating against future innovators and entrepreneurs. We have to continue to be an attractive destination for the world's best. It's been a pillar of the foundation our great country was built upon. And so we have to do our own small part to make sure that we continue. For the full post on the H1B Guy news for the week ending August 28th, 2020, you can check out the H1BGuy.com. And while you're there, if you'll check out some of our other posts that we've covered over the last few weeks, full content there listed on the site. As I mentioned earlier in the video, I'm really excited about what we have in store for you next week. I've been getting a lot of questions around S386, and of course it's been a topic on this channel here for the better part of 6 weeks. But look for a video covering my thoughts on the likelihood of S386 passing on Monday. On Tuesday, we'll cover the H1B Guy breaks down Senate Bill 3770, the H1B and L1 Visa Reform Act of 2020. Part 2, where we'll cover the impact and reform that's being proposed around the L1. And I'm really excited about Wednesday. Need you to tune in at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for another episode of the H1B Guy Live Stamp It Out Q&A with very special guest, Rational Woman, Twitter handle at Ration Woman. Thursday, we'll cover H1B denial percentages that have been increasing over the last few years. And then Friday, another episode of the H1B Guy News, this time September 4th of 2020. I'd like to ask you again, if you haven't already, to please subscribe to the H1B Guy channel here on YouTube. Please click the bell for notifications. If you like the news content for today, please hit like. It really helps this channel to continue to produce more content like this. The H1B Guy, your global source for all things H1B.